To turn now to veteran journalist Arwa Damon, who joins us from Istanbul, Turkey. As we say every time that you're on with us, Arwa, you've covered this region in depth for so many years. Things have changed today in that we're back to where we were with fighting having resumed. And the biggest difference between when it was happening in the past and when it's happening now, there's a real focus on the southern part of Gaza. Your thoughts on what's been happening so far today there?
Well, it's really terrifying for everyone who moved from the north to the south to hear that a deeper intensity of fighting is going to be arriving their way. And by fighting, what we really mean is bombardment. You have to remember that Israel initially declared the south to be a safe zone, although despite that declaration, it never really was. And now residents within the south feel as if they're just being pushed around to areas that they can't really get to. You were talking about the leaflets that were dropped with this QR code. Well, to be able to even scan the QR code and get onto the network, you need electricity to be able to power your phone. And then you also need connectivity to actually be able to get to the internet. In addition, it's also worth talking about what was able to be built up, if anything, in the last days during the pause, what humanitarian aid organizations were actually able to get in. And of course, as we know, all too well, it is not even close to being enough. We do know that the United Nations and the WHO were able to get a couple of aid trucks to the north, falling far short of what residents in the north need. They were able to deliver sufficient fuel to 2 hospitals in the north to last those facilities around 7 days. And then, of course, the bulk of the distribution has been happening in the southern areas where they were able to get some supplies in. But again, it's not going to be lasting for more than a day or two. And what's of great concern is that the Rafah border crossing with Egypt was shut today once that ceasefire utterly fell apart.
All right, let me talk about a few of those things, in particular these so-called safe zones that are going to be an issue for Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. Go to our maps here for a moment just to give people context to what we're talking about. We started the northern part of Gaza just because that's where we've been throughout, and people see Al-Shifa Hospital in here as a reference point. You know, that's where we've talked so much about, you know, the refugee camp here as well that we talked a lot about. But if you move to the southern part of Gaza, this is the Rafah crossing that Arwa alludes to that goes into Egypt. And this particular area here of Khan Yunis has really come into focus today, where there's been heavy bombardment reported. And this final map will show what are the so-called evacuation zones. Look at this. This is what people are being given. They're numbered zones. And in this case, I'll try to zoom in a little bit on it. You can see how small, just on a relative basis, some of these areas are. So you're told to go to one number, and you can see how close it is to another area. The reality is, it brings up the question, Arwa, if there are any safe spots in Gaza anywhere in any of those zones. What would you say?
I would say no. In that first map that you showed, there was the area of Jabalia that was not identified as being an active zone. That is an area that has been bombed numerous times since this all began.
Yep.
There's another location there that actually a friend of mine has relatives who were killed there, and her relatives who still remain in the north are unable to go into that area to pick up the bodies of the dead because it's being surrounded by Israeli tanks. And then in that last map that you showed, there was an area called Mawasi that was sort of highlighted as being a safe zone. This is an area that, yes, the Israelis have identified. However, the thought that everyone can go to that area is slightly absurd, because it's just a bunch of palm trees in an agricultural zone. It's right on the beach. There's sand dunes, there's palm trees. There's nothing there. There's no facilities there. It was a place where there was an Israeli settlement in 2005. But then when they withdrew from the settlements, the Israelis destroyed all of the buildings and the infrastructure that was left behind. And so what they're effectively saying is, sure, here's a safe area you can go to, but there's absolutely zero infrastructure there. And in a lot of these areas that they are asking people to evacuate from, you have to remember that this isn't just the population that used to live there that has to evacuate. The population in the southern part of Gaza has just about doubled. You have more than 1 million people who are staying in UN shelters. You have the vast majority of people from the north who moved to the south. I mean, it's not realistic given the current conditions. It's just not.
Let me shift back to one other topic we covered with Robert Sherman and his reporting, just to get your reaction to this headline that came out of the New York Times report last night. We'll put up the New York Times headline saying that Israel knew Hamas's attack plan more than a year ago. That's what the Times reported, essentially saying that, you know, they had this document circulating widely in intelligence circles and the like, but the experts determined that an attack of that scale and that ambition was beyond the capabilities of Hamas. So they basically thought it was aspirational. That would never come to fruition, but it did. Your reaction to that reporting that was in the New York Times?
It reminds me a lot of Al-Qaeda and 9/11, when prior to Al-Qaeda, hijacking and flying a bunch of planes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, there had been intelligence about that circulated by a number of different U.S. intelligence organizations. There had been warnings that Al-Qaeda was going to be carrying out a very big, significant, and devastating attack on U.S. soil. And there had been even some indications among the intelligence, if one were to go back and look at it, that these attacks were going to be carried out in the exact way that Al-Qaeda did then carry them out, that planes would be hijacked and that these planes would be flown into specific targets. And the U.S. failed to take it seriously enough at the time as well. And we saw what happened post 9/11, globally throughout the world. There were a number of investigations, although, of course, in the U.S., no one was really held that accountable for the intelligence failure. And it seems like this is very much also the same thing that happened with Israel. The indications were there, the signs were there, but there was a massive, massive failure.
And the government, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, is saying for now, as Robert talked about, that there'll be a time to talk about this. That time is not now. They want to focus on the war. Let's go back to the comments that Netanyahu made earlier in the week, which I think kind of illustrate what he wants to be doing now that the fighting has resumed. I mean, he's been very clear about what he wants to do, and here's what he said.
I've sworn to eradicate Hamas. Nothing will stop us. We will continue this war until we reach our three objectives: free all of our hostages, eliminate Hamas till the end, and to ensure that we won't ever face such a threat from Gaza ever again.
I guess one of the questions that's raised by that, Arwa, is that priority of freeing all our hostages. Is that still something that can be accomplished if you're back to eradicating Hamas with a war that's underway again? Can you do both?
It most certainly makes it a lot more difficult. And look, there have been a number of questions raised as to how serious Netanyahu actually is about trying to secure the hostages release, and why it is that it seems as if it's actually the United States that's really pushing for these negotiations, pushing for the pause that we saw, pushing for the trade-off that we saw between Israeli hostages and other nationalities being held by Hamas in exchange for Palestinians that are being detained by the Israelis. And, a lot would say that it is perhaps arguably in Netanyahu's interest to see how long this can be dragged out, because most certainly when this is over, his ability to hold on to power is effectively very slim or fairly non-existent. That is also why we're really seeing the U.S. again pushing for these negotiations to keep going, because yes, of course, the longer the fighting drags on, the more intense the bombing is, the larger the danger also being posed to the hostages is. And so one could argue that if Israel really wanted to get the hostages out, the priority should be just, give Hamas what they want in exchange for it, get your people out, get your people safe, and then do whatever it is that you want to do in Gaza without potentially endangering or continuing to endanger your own.
Instead, the war is underway once again, and there's been heavy bombardment, especially in the southern part of the Gaza Strip today. The veteran war correspondent Arwa Damon with us once again, live from Istanbul in Turkey. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.